Question 1. Quality control measures reveal minor deviations in the cosmetic finish of a batch of medical devices, which do not impact the device's functionality or safety. The production team is eager to release the batch to meet a critical customer deadline. What is the most appropriate course of action for the certified quality auditor? Option A. Approve the immediate release of the product to meet the customer deadline, as the deviations are cosmetic and do not affect functionality or safety. Option B. Approve the release with a note to the customer acknowledging the cosmetic imperfections without a formal risk assessment. Option C. Halt the release of the product indefinitely until every single cosmetic imperfection is rectified, regardless of its impact. Option D. Conduct a risk assessment to determine the potential impact of the cosmetic deviations on product performance, regulatory compliance, and customer perception, and then decide on the release based on the risk evaluation and established quality standards. The correct answer is D. Conduct a risk assessment to determine the potential impact of the cosmetic deviations on product performance, regulatory compliance, and customer perception, and then decide on the release based on the risk evaluation and established quality standards. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the certified quality auditor to balance the immediate need for product release with the imperative to uphold product quality and regulatory compliance. The auditor must exercise sound professional judgment, considering the potential risks associated with releasing a product that may not fully conform to specifications, even if the deviations appear minor. The core challenge lies in determining the appropriate level of risk acceptance and the necessary corrective actions without compromising the integrity of the quality system or customer safety. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough risk assessment of the identified nonconformances. This means systematically evaluating the potential impact of the deviations on product performance, safety, and regulatory compliance. The auditor must then determine if the identified risks are acceptable based on established quality standards and regulatory requirements. If the risks are deemed unacceptable, appropriate corrective and preventive actions, COPPA, must be implemented and verified before product release. This approach is ethically and regulatorily justified because it prioritizes product safety and customer well-being, aligns with the principles of good manufacturing practices, GMP, or other relevant quality standards, and ensures that the organization maintains its commitment to producing conforming products. It also demonstrates due diligence and adherence to the auditor's professional responsibilities. An incorrect approach would be to approve product release without a comprehensive risk assessment, especially if the nonconformances could potentially affect product performance or safety. This failure to adequately assess risk is a direct violation of quality management principles and regulatory expectations. It exposes the organization to potential product recalls, customer complaints, regulatory sanctions, and reputational damage. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty to ensure product quality and safety. Another incorrect approach is to delay product release indefinitely without a clear plan for addressing the nonconformances. While caution is necessary, an indefinite hold without a defined resolution path can lead to significant business disruptions, inventory issues, and missed market opportunities. This approach fails to demonstrate effective problem solving and can be seen as inefficient and lacking in proactive quality management. It does not align with the goal of continuous improvement inherent in quality auditing. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to implement superficial corrective actions that do not address the root cause of the nonconformances. This superficial approach might satisfy a procedural requirement, but does not prevent recurrence. It undermines the effectiveness of the quality system and leaves the organization vulnerable to future issues. This demonstrates a lack of thoroughness and a failure to uphold the principles of robust quality assurance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify and document all nonconformances. 2. Initiate a formal risk assessment process for each nonconformance, considering potential impact on product function, safety, and regulatory compliance. 3. Consult relevant quality standards, specifications, and regulatory requirements to establish acceptable risk thresholds. 4. If risks exceed acceptable thresholds, define and implement appropriate COPPA. 5. Verify the effectiveness of COPPA before proceeding with product release. 6. Document all findings, decisions, and actions thoroughly. 7. Communicate findings and decisions to relevant stakeholders. Question 2. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a recurring quality defect impacting customer satisfaction, with a high potential impact on brand reputation. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and regulatory expectations for a certified quality auditor? Option A. Conduct a superficial review of the defect and recommend minor adjustments to existing procedures without a formal verification process. Option B. Reclassify the risk as low due to the moderate likelihood, focusing resources on other identified high-priority risks. Option C. Issue a one-time corrective action to address the immediate symptoms of the defect and assume the issue is resolved. Option D. Implement a Plan Do Check Act (PDCA) cycle to systematically investigate the root cause, develop and test solutions, verify effectiveness, and standardize improvements. The correct answer is D. Implement a Plan Do Check Act (PDCA) cycle to systematically investigate the root cause, develop and test solutions, verify effectiveness, and standardize improvements. Explanation: the risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a recurring quality defect impacting customer satisfaction, with a high potential impact on brand reputation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a quality auditor to balance the immediate resource demands of a full-scale corrective action with the potential long-term benefits of a more proactive, continuous improvement approach. The auditor must not only identify the problem, but also recommend a sustainable solution that aligns with quality management principles and regulatory expectations for process improvement. The correct approach involves implementing a Plan Do Check Act (PDCA) cycle to address the identified risk. This methodology is a cornerstone of continuous improvement, emphasizing a systematic and iterative process for problem solving and process enhancement. By planning the improvement, executing the plan, checking the results, and acting to standardize or further refine, the organization can effectively mitigate the risk and prevent recurrence. This aligns with the fundamental principles of quality management systems, which mandate a commitment to continuous improvement and customer satisfaction. Regulatory frameworks for quality auditing often implicitly or explicitly endorse such systematic approaches to ensure ongoing effectiveness of quality processes. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on a reactive, one-time fix without a structured plan for verification and long-term improvement. This fails to address the root cause and the potential for recurrence, thereby not fulfilling the spirit of continuous improvement expected in quality auditing. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the risk as minor without a thorough root cause analysis, potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance if the defect escalates, or if the quality management system is found to be inadequate in its risk assessment and mitigation processes. Furthermore, implementing a solution without a clear plan for checking its effectiveness and acting on the findings represents a failure to adhere to the iterative nature of PDCA, leaving the organization vulnerable to the same risks. Professionals should approach such situations by first thoroughly understanding the identified risk and its potential impact. They should then evaluate potential solutions against established quality management principles, such as those embodied in the PDCA cycle. The decision-making process should prioritize systematic, data-driven approaches that aim for sustainable improvement rather than superficial fixes. This involves considering the long-term effectiveness, efficiency, and compliance implications of each proposed action. Question 3. The efficiency study reveals that while the organization publicly espouses total quality management (TQM) principles, there is a significant gap between stated policies and actual operational execution, particularly concerning customer feedback integration and employee empowerment in problem solving. Which approach best addresses this discrepancy from a certified quality auditor's perspective, ensuring adherence to quality management principles and regulatory expectations? Option A. Focus the audit on the financial improvements identified in the efficiency study, assuming that positive financial results are a direct indicator of successful TQM implementation. Option B. Prioritize gathering qualitative and quantitative data directly from frontline employees and customers regarding their experiences with quality processes and TQM initiatives, alongside a review of relevant documentation. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of all TQM policy documents and interview senior management to understand their strategic intent. Then correlate this with the efficiency study's findings on operational output. Option D. Analyze the efficiency study's data for any mention of process bottlenecks and recommend immediate technological solutions without further investigation into the underlying quality management system. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of all TQM policy documents and interview senior management to understand their strategic intent, then correlate this with the efficiency study's findings on operational output. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals a significant disconnect between the stated total quality management (TQM) principles and the actual operational practices within the organization. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the auditor to navigate the complexities of stakeholder expectations, the practical implementation of quality management systems, and the potential for superficial adherence to TQM without genuine commitment. The auditor must assess whether the organization is truly embodying TQM's core tenets or merely paying lip service to them, which can have profound implications for product/service quality, customer satisfaction, and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a comprehensive stakeholder engagement strategy that actively seeks input from all levels of the organization, from senior management to frontline employees, and importantly, from customers. This aligns with the TQM principle of customer focus and employee involvement. By gathering diverse perspectives, the auditor can gain a holistic understanding of how TQM is perceived and practiced, identifying gaps between policy and reality. This approach is ethically and regulatorily justified, as it promotes transparency, fairness, and a commitment to continuous improvement, which are fundamental to robust quality management systems, and often implicitly or explicitly required by quality standards and regulatory frameworks that underpin the Certified Quality Auditor exam. It ensures that the audit is not just a superficial review, but a deep dive into the organizational culture and its impact on quality. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on documentation and senior management interviews. This fails to capture the lived experience of employees and customers, who are crucial stakeholders in any TQM initiative. Such an approach risks overlooking critical implementation failures and can lead to an inaccurate assessment of the organization's quality maturity. Ethically, it is a failure to conduct a thorough and impartial audit. Regulatorily, it may fall short of the due diligence required by quality standards that mandate evidence-based assessment across all relevant organizational functions. Another incorrect approach would be to focus exclusively on the financial benefits derived from the efficiency study, neglecting the underlying quality processes. While efficiency is a desirable outcome, TQM's primary goal is quality improvement, which then drives efficiency and other benefits. Prioritizing financial outcomes over the quality system itself demonstrates a misunderstanding of TQM's foundational principles and can lead to short-sighted decisions that compromise long-term quality and customer trust. This approach is ethically questionable as it may mask systemic quality issues for the sake of immediate financial gains, and regulatorily deficient as it bypasses the core requirements of quality management systems. A third incorrect approach would be to dismiss employee feedback that highlights challenges in implementing TQM, attributing it solely to resistance to change. While resistance can be a factor, genuine implementation challenges, such as inadequate training, unclear communication, or insufficient resources, are critical to identify and address. Ignoring such feedback prevents the organization from learning and improving, undermining the continuous improvement aspect of TQM. This is an ethical failure to listen to and act upon valid concerns, and a regulatory failure to ensure that quality management systems are effectively implemented and maintained. The professional decision-making process for similar situations requires a commitment to a balanced and comprehensive audit methodology. This involves understanding the organization's stated quality objectives, actively engaging with all relevant stakeholders to gather diverse perspectives, critically evaluating the evidence collected against established quality principles and regulatory requirements, and providing actionable recommendations for improvement based on a thorough analysis of both strengths and weaknesses. Question 4. The efficiency study reveals that while Department A consistently meets its quality targets and adheres to the documented quality management system procedures, Department B exhibits significant variations in process execution and output quality, leading to lower efficiency metrics. Which approach best addresses this situation from a certified quality auditor's perspective, adhering to ISO 9000 principles? Option A. Focus the audit efforts solely on Department B, assuming its inefficiencies are the primary problem, and implementing a standardized corrective action plan without further investigation into departmental differences. Option B. Conduct a detailed comparative audit of Department B's processes against the established quality management system and ISO 9001 requirements, investigating the root causes of the observed variations and their impact on overall quality objectives. Option C. Recommend immediate implementation of a new, universally applied process across all departments to address the perceived efficiency gap, bypassing a thorough audit of existing departmental practices. Option D. Rely on informal discussions and feedback from Department B's management to understand the reasons for the efficiency differences and propose solutions based on their input. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed comparative audit of Department B's processes against the established quality management system and ISO 9001 requirements, investigating the root causes of the observed variations and their impact on overall quality objectives. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a discrepancy in the implementation of a quality management system, QMS, across different departments. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the auditor to not only identify deviations from the established QMS, but also to assess the root causes and potential impacts on the organization's ability to meet its quality objectives and regulatory requirements, specifically within the context of ISO 9000 standards. The auditor must exercise careful judgment to distinguish between minor nonconformities and systemic issues that could jeopardize certification or customer satisfaction. The correct approach involves a comparative analysis of the QMS implementation across departments, focusing on the adherence to ISO 9001 clauses and the organization's own documented procedures. This approach is right because ISO 9001 mandates a consistent and effective QMS throughout the organization. By comparing departmental practices against the standard and internal documentation, the auditor can objectively identify variations, assess their significance, and determine if they represent nonconformities. This aligns with the principles of ISO 9001, which emphasizes process approach, evidence-based decision-making, and continuous improvement. The regulatory justification stems from ISO 9001-2015 Clause 4. 4. Quality Management System and its Processes, and Clause 9. 1. Monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation, which require organizations to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve a QMS, including the processes necessary to meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, and to monitor and evaluate the performance of the QMS. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the department with the lowest reported efficiency metrics fails to consider the broader QMS. This is a regulatory failure because ISO 9001 requires the QMS to be applied consistently across all relevant processes and departments. Focusing on a single metric without a holistic view can lead to overlooking systemic issues in other areas that might be more critical from a quality or compliance perspective. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing a new, standardized procedure across all departments without first understanding the existing departmental processes and their effectiveness is also a regulatory failure. This bypasses the essential step of auditing the current state and understanding the reasons for any observed differences. ISO 9001-2015 Clause 7. 1. 6. Organizational knowledge and Clause 7. 3. Awareness. Emphasize understanding existing capabilities and ensuring personnel are aware of the quality policy and objectives. Imposing a new system without this understanding can lead to resistance, ineffectiveness, and noncompliance. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence from department heads to explain efficiency differences is professionally unacceptable because it lacks objectivity and evidence-based decision-making, which are core tenets of ISO 9001. Clause 9. 1. 1 General of ISO 9001-2015 requires organizations to determine what needs to be monitored and evaluated, and the methods of monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. Anecdotal evidence does not meet the requirement for reliable data and objective assessment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the scope of the audit and the relevant ISO 9001 clauses. 2. Gathering objective evidence through interviews, document review, and observation across all relevant departments. 3. performing a comparative analysis of practices against the QMS documentation and ISO 9001 requirements. 4. Identifying and documenting nonconformities based on evidence. 5. Analyzing the root causes of identified deviations. 6. Evaluating the impact of deviations on the overall QMS effectiveness and the organization's ability to meet its objectives. 7. Recommending corrective actions that address the root causes and prevent recurrence. Question 5. The assessment process reveals that while the organization has documented quality policies and procedures, employee engagement in proactive quality improvement initiatives is low, and there is a perception that quality is solely the responsibility of the quality assurance department. Leadership has expressed a desire to foster a stronger quality-focused organizational culture. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation to build a sustainable quality culture? Option A. Assign a dedicated quality champion within each department and expect them to cascade quality initiatives without direct involvement from senior leadership or broader employee participation. Option B. Develop new, more detailed quality manuals and mandate that all employees sign off on their understanding of these documents annually. Option C. Implement a comprehensive employee training program focused on quality principles and empower cross-functional teams to identify and implement process improvements that directly impact quality outcomes. Option D. Increase the number of quality audits conducted by the Quality Assurance Department and implement stricter disciplinary actions for any quality deviations identified. The correct answer is C. Implement a comprehensive employee training program focused on quality principles and empower cross-functional teams to identify and implement process improvements that directly impact quality outcomes. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in establishing a robust quality culture: the disconnect between stated quality objectives and the daily operational realities experienced by employees. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires auditors to move beyond simply identifying nonconformities to understanding the systemic factors influencing behavior and commitment to quality. Effective judgment is needed to discern whether the issues stem from a lack of understanding, inadequate resources, leadership deficiencies, or a combination thereof. The goal is to foster a culture where quality is not an add-on, but an intrinsic part of every employee's role and responsibility. The correct approach involves actively engaging employees in identifying and implementing process improvements that directly impact quality. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and employee empowerment, which are fundamental to building a sustainable quality culture. By involving employees, their buy-in and ownership of quality initiatives increase, leading to more effective and lasting solutions. This approach also supports the leadership's role in championing quality by demonstrating that their commitment is translated into tangible actions that benefit the workforce and the organization's quality objectives. Regulatory frameworks often emphasize the importance of a well-trained and engaged workforce in achieving quality standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on top-down directives without employee input fails to address the root causes of quality issues. This can lead to resistance, a perception of quality as a burden, and a lack of genuine commitment from the workforce. Such an approach neglects the crucial element of employee involvement, which is vital for embedding quality into the organizational fabric. Ethically, it can be seen as a failure to provide employees with the necessary tools and voice to contribute to organizational success. Another incorrect approach that emphasizes punitive measures for quality failures, rather than focusing on learning and improvement, can create a climate of fear. This discourages open reporting of issues and stifles innovation, as employees may become hesitant to take risks or highlight potential problems. This approach is counterproductive to building a proactive quality culture and can lead to a superficial compliance rather than a deep-seated commitment to quality. A further incorrect approach that delegates quality responsibilities solely to a dedicated quality department, without integrating them into the daily work of all employees, creates silos. This can lead to a perception that quality is the responsibility of a select few, rather than a shared organizational value. It fails to leverage the collective knowledge and experience of the entire workforce in driving quality improvements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic assessment of the current quality culture, identifying gaps between stated intentions and actual practices. This should be followed by a strategy that prioritizes employee engagement, leadership commitment, and the integration of quality principles into all operational processes. Auditors should advocate for solutions that empower employees, foster open communication, and promote a learning environment where quality is continuously pursued and improved. Question 6. Investigation of how a certified quality auditor, operating under U.S. regulatory frameworks, should evaluate the practical application of quality management principles derived from the methodologies of W. Edwards Deeming and Joseph M. Duren when assessing a pharmaceutical manufacturing process, specifically concerning the identification and mitigation of process deviations. Option A. Apply a blend of Deeming's and Duren's methodologies without a clear prioritization, leading to a potentially fragmented approach to deviation analysis and mitigation that may not fully satisfy regulatory requirements for a cohesive quality system. Option B. Focus primarily on Duren's quality trilogy, quality planning, quality control, quality improvement, to ensure each phase is adequately addressed in the deviation management process, without deeply integrating the systemic view or the nuances of variation. Option C. Emphasize Crosby's quality is free, and the pursuit of zero defects as the primary driver for deviation management, potentially overlooking the regulatory acceptance of certain manageable variations. Option D. Prioritize understanding Deeming's system of profound knowledge, particularly the appreciation for a system and understanding variation, to analyze how deviations impact the entire manufacturing system, and to differentiate between common and special cause variations, ensuring that mitigation strategies address systemic issues and align with regulatory expectations for process control. The correct answer is D. Prioritize understanding Deeming's system of profound knowledge, particularly the appreciation for a system and understanding variation, to analyze how deviations impact the entire manufacturing system, and to differentiate between common and special cause variations, ensuring that mitigation strategies address systemic issues and align with regulatory expectations for process control. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an auditor to balance the practical implementation of quality management principles with the specific requirements of a regulatory framework, which in this case is assumed to be the U.S. regulatory framework relevant to the Certified Quality Auditor exam. The auditor must critically evaluate the application of Quality Guru's methodologies, not just for their theoretical merit, but for their compliance and effectiveness within a regulated environment. Careful judgment is required to discern which aspects of a guru's philosophy are adaptable and beneficial, without compromising adherence to established standards and legal obligations. The correct approach involves a nuanced understanding of Deeming's system of profound knowledge, specifically focusing on the appreciation for a system and understanding variation. This approach is right because it directly addresses the interconnectedness of processes and the need to differentiate between common cause and special cause variation, which is fundamental to effective quality auditing within a regulated industry. Regulatory frameworks often mandate robust process control and continuous improvement, aligning perfectly with Deeming's emphasis on understanding the system as a whole and managing its inherent variability. This leads to more effective identification of systemic issues and opportunities for improvement that are compliant with regulations. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on Duren's quality trilogy, quality planning, quality control, quality improvement, without considering the systemic implications or the nature of variation. While Duren's trilogy is foundational, a rigid application without integrating Deeming's understanding of systems and variation might lead to superficial improvements that do not address root causes or comply with regulatory expectations for deep process understanding. This could result in audits that identify symptoms rather than systemic failures, potentially leading to noncompliance. Another incorrect approach would be to exclusively adopt Crosby's quality is free philosophy and its emphasis on zero defects through prevention. While the pursuit of zero defects is a valuable goal, an uncritical adoption without considering the regulatory context and the reality of variation can be problematic. Regulations often acknowledge that certain levels of variation are inherent and manageable, and an absolute focus on zero defects might lead to unrealistic expectations, inefficient resource allocation, and a failure to address acceptable levels of variation that are within regulatory limits. This could also lead to a focus on superficial fixes rather than addressing underlying systemic issues that are critical for regulatory compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic evaluation of the quality management principles in light of the specific regulatory requirements and organizational context. Auditors should first identify the core tenets of each quality guru's methodology. Then, they must assess how these tenets align with the applicable regulatory framework, considering requirements for process control, risk management, and continuous improvement. The auditor should prioritize methodologies that promote a deep understanding of systems and variation, as these are most likely to lead to sustainable improvements and robust compliance. Finally, the auditor must be able to articulate the rationale for their approach, demonstrating how it supports both quality objectives and regulatory adherence. Question 7. The monitoring system demonstrates a statistically significant shift in a critical process parameters control chart, indicating a deviation from established process capability. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the quality auditor to recommend? Option A. Continue normal operations, as the shift is within the broader historical range of process variation. Option B. Initiate a documented investigation to identify the root cause of the process shift and assess its impact on product quality. Option C. Immediately halt all production activities until the process parameter can be manually recalibrated. Option D. Make minor adjustments to the process parameters to bring the control chart back within acceptable limits without further investigation. The correct answer is B. Initiate a documented investigation to identify the root cause of the process shift and assess its impact on product quality. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in quality auditing, balancing the need for immediate corrective action with the requirement for thorough root cause analysis, all within the framework of regulatory compliance. The auditor must determine the most appropriate response to a statistically significant deviation without overreacting or underreacting, which could lead to regulatory noncompliance or wasted resources. The professional challenge lies in interpreting SPC data accurately, understanding its implications for product quality and patient safety, if applicable, and selecting an intervention that is both effective and compliant with the relevant quality management system standards and regulatory expectations. The correct approach involves initiating a documented investigation to identify the root cause of the process shift. This aligns with the principles of robust quality management systems, which mandate that deviations from expected performance are not simply corrected but understood. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governed by the FDA's Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, or ISO 13485, require that manufacturers establish and maintain procedures for corrective and preventive actions, COPPA. This includes investigating the cause of nonconformities and implementing actions to prevent recurrence. A statistically significant shift in SPC data is a clear indicator of a potential nonconformity or a deviation that could lead to one, necessitating a formal investigation to ensure product quality and patient safety are maintained. An incorrect approach would be to immediately halt production without a clear understanding of the cause. While seemingly proactive, this can lead to unnecessary disruption, increased costs, and potential stock shortages, without guaranteeing that the underlying issue is addressed. It bypasses the critical step of root cause analysis, which is a regulatory requirement. Another incorrect approach is to simply adjust process parameters without documenting the deviation or investigating its cause. This is a superficial fix that fails to address the systemic issues that led to the shift, increasing the risk of recurrence and violating the principles of continuous improvement and regulatory compliance. Finally, ignoring the statistically significant shift and continuing normal operations is a direct violation of quality system requirements and regulatory expectations. It demonstrates a failure to monitor and control processes effectively, potentially leading to the release of non-conforming product and posing a risk to end users. Professionals should approach such situations by first recognizing the statistical signal as a trigger for investigation. The decision-making process should involve 1. Confirming the validity of the SPC data and the statistical significance of the shift. 2. Assessing the potential impact of the shift on product quality and safety. 3. Initiating a documented investigation to determine the root cause, following established COPPA procedures. And 4. Implementing appropriate corrective actions based on the findings of the investigation, with verification of effectiveness. This systematic approach ensures compliance, mitigates risk, and drives continuous improvement. Question 8. The efficiency study reveals a potential for significant cost savings by altering a key component in the manufacturing process that directly impacts the end-user experience, though the study does not explicitly quantify customer dissatisfaction. As a certified quality auditor, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Recommend approval of the cost-saving measure, as the efficiency study indicates clear financial benefits and no direct evidence of customer detriment. Option B. Reject the efficiency study outright, prioritizing existing customer satisfaction metrics over potential cost reductions. Option C. Recommend further investigation into the potential customer impact of the proposed change, including gathering customer feedback and assessing potential effects on satisfaction levels before making a decision. Option D. Defer the decision to senior management without providing any auditor recommendation, citing the need for a business decision. The correct answer is A. Recommend approval of the cost-saving measure, as the efficiency study indicates clear financial benefits and no direct evidence of customer detriment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it pits the immediate perceived benefit of cost reduction against the fundamental quality principle of customer focus. As a certified quality auditor, the auditor must navigate this conflict by prioritizing long-term customer satisfaction and regulatory compliance over short-term financial gains. The challenge lies in the potential for a seemingly minor change to have significant, albeit indirect, negative impacts on customer perception and trust. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation into the customer impact of the proposed change. This means not just accepting the efficiency study's findings at face value, but actively seeking to understand how the change might affect the customer experience, product quality, or service delivery. This aligns with the core tenets of quality management systems, which emphasize understanding and meeting customer requirements and striving to exceed expectations. Specifically, regulatory frameworks for quality management, such as ISO 9001, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction, assuming a general quality auditing context, mandate a strong customer focus. This includes determining customer requirements, communicating with customers, and measuring customer satisfaction. Ignoring potential negative customer impacts would be a direct contravention of these principles. Ethically, an auditor has a responsibility to uphold the integrity of the quality system and to act in a manner that promotes customer well-being and trust in the organization's products or services. An incorrect approach would be to immediately approve the proposed change based solely on the efficiency study's cost-saving projections. This fails to acknowledge the critical importance of customer focus and the potential for unintended consequences. Such an approach risks damaging the organization's reputation, leading to customer dissatisfaction, and potentially violating quality management principles that require a holistic view of operations and their impact on stakeholders. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the efficiency study entirely without proper evaluation. While customer focus is paramount, a responsible auditor also considers operational efficiency. However, the decision must be informed by a comprehensive risk assessment that includes customer impact, not just financial benefits. A third incorrect approach might be to defer the decision without any further investigation, effectively abdicating responsibility. This demonstrates a lack of proactive engagement and a failure to apply quality auditing principles to a relevant operational proposal. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the proposal and its stated benefits, e.g., cost saving. 2. Identify potential impacts with a primary focus on customer needs, expectations, and satisfaction. 3. Gather data and evidence to support or refute these potential impacts. This may involve customer feedback, complaint data, or even direct customer engagement. 4. Assess the risks and benefits holistically, considering both financial and customer-centric perspectives. 5. Make a recommendation or decision based on the comprehensive assessment, prioritizing customer satisfaction and regulatory compliance. 6. Document the decision-making process and the rationale behind it. Question 9. When evaluating an organization's readiness for pursuing a prestigious quality award, such as the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, which approach best aligns with the certified quality auditor's ethical and professional responsibilities? Option A. Focus on identifying and documenting areas where the organization demonstrably excels according to the award criteria, while developing a strategic plan to address identified gaps in a way that aligns with the award scoring methodology. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive and objective assessment of the organization's quality management system against the full spectrum of the award criteria, identifying both strengths and weaknesses with supporting evidence, and recommending systemic improvements regardless of their immediate impact on award eligibility. Option C. Prioritize the creation of compelling narratives and visual presentations that showcase the organization's perceived strengths and achievements, ensuring these are prominently featured in any award application materials. Option D. Engage external consultants to fine-tune existing processes and documentation to precisely match the language and expectations of the award framework, ensuring a high probability of a favorable external review. The correct answer is A. Focus on identifying and documenting areas where the organization demonstrably excels according to the award criteria, while developing a strategic plan to address identified gaps in a way that aligns with the award scoring methodology. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a certified quality auditor to balance the pursuit of prestigious external recognition with the fundamental principles of internal quality management and ethical conduct. The pressure to achieve a recognized award can sometimes lead to a temptation to prioritize superficial compliance or to misrepresent the organization's true state of quality. A deep understanding of the criteria for awards like the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award is crucial, as these frameworks emphasize systemic excellence, leadership commitment, customer focus, and data-driven decision-making, not just the appearance of quality. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective assessment of the organization's current quality management system against the rigorous criteria of the chosen award framework. This means identifying genuine strengths and weaknesses through evidence-based evaluation, rather than focusing solely on areas that might impress external assessors. The ethical justification lies in upholding the integrity of the auditing profession and ensuring that any pursuit of external recognition is a genuine reflection of organizational improvement, not a marketing exercise. This aligns with the core principles of professional conduct for auditors, which demand honesty, objectivity, and a commitment to truthfulness in reporting. An incorrect approach that focuses on preparing for the award by selectively highlighting positive aspects and downplaying or ignoring systemic issues is ethically flawed. This approach violates the auditor's duty of objectivity and can lead to a misleading representation of the organization's quality performance. It prioritizes the outcome of recognition over the process of genuine improvement, potentially masking critical deficiencies that could harm customers or stakeholders. Another incorrect approach, which involves tailoring the quality management system solely to meet the perceived requirements of the award without genuine integration into daily operations, also fails ethically. This creates a facade of compliance and undermines the long-term sustainability of quality initiatives. It suggests a lack of commitment to the underlying principles of quality management, which should be embedded in the organization's culture and processes. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes integrity and objectivity. This involves 1. Understanding the purpose and criteria of the award framework thoroughly. 2. Conducting an unbiased assessment of the organization's current state against these criteria, using verifiable evidence. 3. Identifying gaps and areas for improvement based on the assessment, not on what might look good for an award application. 4. Communicating findings honestly and transparently to leadership, recommending actions for genuine improvement. 5. Ensuring that any award pursuit is a consequence of robust internal quality practices, not the sole driver of those practices. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that the Quality Assurance Department is proposing to engage in competitive benchmarking with an international firm to identify best practices in process efficiency. The proposed benchmarking involves sharing anonymized operational data and conducting joint site visits. The certified quality auditor must determine the most appropriate course of action, considering the regulatory framework governing quality audits and data handling within their jurisdiction. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory compliance and ethical quality auditing principles? Option A. Proceed with the benchmarking initiative, assuming that anonymized data sharing and joint site visits are universally acceptable practices for quality improvement, and address any potential regulatory concerns if they arise later. Option B. Limit the benchmarking to publicly available information and theoretical best practices, avoiding any direct data exchange or site visits with the international firm to circumvent potential regulatory complexities. Option C. Initiate the benchmarking process immediately with the international firm, prioritizing the potential gains in efficiency and quality, and inform the regulatory bodies only after the benchmarking results have been implemented. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive regulatory assessment of the proposed benchmarking partner and the data exchange process, ensuring alignment with all applicable laws and guidelines regarding data privacy, industry-specific regulations, and ethical conduct before proceeding. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the benchmarking initiative, assuming that anonymized data sharing and joint site visits are universally acceptable practices for quality improvement, and address any potential regulatory concerns if they arise later. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the certified quality auditor to balance the pursuit of operational excellence through benchmarking with the imperative of regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. The auditor must discern whether the proposed benchmarking activity, while potentially beneficial for quality improvement, adheres to the specific regulatory framework governing the organization's industry and operations. The risk lies in adopting practices that, while effective elsewhere, could inadvertently violate established rules or ethical standards, leading to non-compliance, penalties, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of best practices does not compromise the integrity of the quality management system or its adherence to legal and regulatory mandates. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the proposed benchmarking partner and the data exchange process against the specific regulatory framework applicable to the certified quality auditor's jurisdiction. This includes verifying that the partner operates within the same or compatible regulatory environment, ensuring that any shared data is anonymized or de-identified to protect sensitive information as required by data privacy regulations, and confirming that the benchmarking process itself does not involve any activities that contravene industry-specific regulations or quality standards. The regulatory justification for this approach lies in the fundamental principle of compliance. For instance, if the organization is in a regulated industry like pharmaceuticals or finance, specific regulations, e.g., FDA regulations in the US, FCA rules in the UK, dictate how data can be collected, shared, and used, especially concerning quality and performance metrics. Ethical considerations also mandate that benchmarking should not involve unfair competitive practices or the misappropriation of intellectual property. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with benchmarking without verifying the regulatory alignment of the partner or the data handling procedures. This could lead to regulatory failures such as violating data protection laws, e.g., GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, which mandate strict controls over personal or proprietary information. Another failure would be engaging with a partner whose operational standards, even if perceived as superior, are not compliant with the auditor's jurisdiction's quality management system requirements or specific industry regulations. This could result in the adoption of substandard or non-compliant processes, undermining the organization's own quality assurance framework. Furthermore, an approach that prioritizes speed or perceived efficiency over due diligence regarding regulatory compliance could lead to the use of data obtained through unethical means or the violation of contractual agreements with suppliers or customers, all of which carry significant regulatory and ethical repercussions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk-based approach. First, identify the specific regulatory requirements and ethical considerations relevant to the benchmarking activity. Second, conduct thorough due diligence on potential benchmarking partners, focusing on their regulatory compliance and ethical standing. Third, establish clear protocols for data collection, sharing, and analysis that explicitly address regulatory mandates and data security. Fourth, involve legal and compliance departments early in the process to ensure all activities are reviewed and approved. Finally, document all decisions and justifications, particularly those related to regulatory compliance, to provide an audit trail. Question 11. Analysis of a quality manager's plan to implement a new statistical process control (SPC) methodology across all production lines to improve defect reduction. The plan involves a single, company-wide rollout next month, with minimal pre-implementation training and no pilot testing phase. The manager believes this direct approach will be faster and more impactful. What is the most appropriate auditor's assessment of this change management approach in relation to quality initiatives? Option A. The approach is efficient, as it minimizes the time and resources spent on planning and training, allowing for quicker realization of quality improvements. Option B. The approach is problematic, as it lacks adequate planning for stakeholder engagement, risk mitigation through pilot testing, and comprehensive training, potentially jeopardizing the integrity of the quality management system. Option C. The approach is acceptable, provided that post-implementation audits are scheduled to identify and correct any issues that arise. Option D. The approach is sound, as a swift and comprehensive rollout ensures immediate adoption and maximizes the impact of the new quality initiative. Correct answer is D. The approach is sound, as a swift and comprehensive rollout ensures immediate adoption and maximizes the impact of the new quality initiative. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in quality management: implementing significant changes to established processes without alienating key stakeholders or undermining the existing quality system. Professional challenge lies in balancing the need for improvement with the practical realities of organizational resistance and the potential for disruption. Auditors must exercise careful judgment to ensure that change management processes are robust, compliant, and effective in achieving desired quality outcomes. The correct approach involves a structured, phased implementation of the new quality initiative, prioritizing clear communication, comprehensive training, and robust feedback mechanisms. This aligns with the principles of ISO 9001, which emphasizes a process approach and continuous improvement, specifically ISO 9001, 2015 Clause 6. 3. Planning of changes mandates that organizations plan changes to the quality management system in a controlled manner. This includes considering the purpose of the changes and their potential consequences, the integrity of the QMS, the availability of resources, and the allocation or reallocation of responsibilities and authorities. A phased approach with pilot testing and iterative refinement ensures that the integrity of the QMS is maintained, risks are mitigated, and the changes are effectively integrated. An incorrect approach would be to implement the changes abruptly without adequate planning or stakeholder engagement. This could lead to confusion, errors, and a breakdown in the quality system, violating the principle of maintaining the integrity of the QMS during change. Another incorrect approach is to bypass essential training and communication, which would fail to equip employees with the necessary knowledge and skills to adapt to the new processes. This not only hinders successful implementation, but also creates an environment where non-compliance is more likely, potentially leading to audit findings and a decline in product or service quality. Furthermore, ignoring feedback from the pilot phase would negate the opportunity for continuous improvement and risk-taking, which are fundamental to effective change management and quality assurance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment, stakeholder engagement, and adherence to established quality management system standards. This involves understanding the potential impact of the change on all aspects of the quality system, actively involving those who will be affected by the change, and ensuring that all implementation steps are documented and auditable. The process should be iterative, allowing for adjustments based on feedback and performance data, thereby ensuring that the change contributes positively to the organization's quality objectives. Question 12. Compliance review shows that a critical process within the organization has been identified as a bottleneck, significantly impacting delivery times. A cross-functional team has proposed a novel software solution to automate a key manual step. The team is eager to deploy this solution immediately to address the bottleneck. As the certified quality auditor, what is the most appropriate next step to ensure the integrity and effectiveness of the proposed improvement? Option A. Advise the team to proceed with full implementation and monitor performance closely, making adjustments as needed post-deployment. Option B. Authorize immediate full-scale deployment of the software solution to address the bottleneck as quickly as possible. Option C. Recommend a phased pilot implementation of the software solution in a limited operational area to gather performance data and identify any unforeseen issues before full rollout. Option D. Approve the deployment based on the team's confidence in the solution and their assurance that it will resolve the bottleneck. correct answer is C. Recommend a phased pilot implementation of the software solution in a limited operational area to gather performance data and identify any unforeseen issues before full rollout. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for timely improvement with the ethical obligation to ensure that implemented solutions are robust, validated, and do not introduce new risks or unintended consequences. The certified quality auditor's role is to ensure that quality systems are effective and compliant, which necessitates a thorough and systematic approach to improvement, especially during the improve phase of a quality management cycle. Rushing implementation without adequate pilot testing or validation can lead to wasted resources, customer dissatisfaction, and potential regulatory noncompliance if the improvements fail to meet established standards or introduce new defects. The correct approach involves a structured pilot testing phase. This allows for the evaluation of the proposed solution in a controlled environment, gathering data on its effectiveness, identifying potential issues, and making necessary adjustments before full-scale implementation. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement, risk management, and evidence-based decision-making inherent in quality management systems. Regulatory frameworks for quality auditing often emphasize the importance of validation and verification of changes to ensure they achieve intended results and maintain the integrity of the quality system. Ethically, auditors have a responsibility to ensure that improvements are genuinely beneficial and do not compromise product or service quality. Implementing improvements without pilot testing is an incorrect approach because it bypasses a critical step in validating the solution's efficacy and identifying potential flaws. This can lead to the widespread adoption of an ineffective or even detrimental change, violating the principle of ensuring that improvements are data-driven and effective. Adopting a solution based solely on anecdotal evidence or the enthusiasm of a particular team without objective data from pilot testing is also an incorrect approach. This relies on subjective opinions rather than objective verification, which is contrary to the systematic and evidence-based nature of quality auditing and improvement processes. It risks implementing changes that are not truly beneficial or may even be counterproductive. Focusing solely on the speed of implementation, prioritizing rapid deployment over thorough validation, is another incorrect approach. While efficiency is important, it should not come at the expense of ensuring the quality and effectiveness of the improvement. This approach neglects the fundamental principle that improvements must be proven to work and be sustainable before widespread adoption. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of proposed improvements. This includes defining clear objectives for the improvement, identifying potential solutions, developing a plan for pilot testing with defined success criteria, executing the pilot, analyzing the results, making necessary adjustments, and then planning for full-scale implementation based on validated data. This iterative and data-driven approach ensures that improvements are effective, efficient, and compliant with quality standards and regulatory requirements. Question 13. System analysis indicates that a new quality improvement project is being initiated. The project team has presented a draft project charter that outlines the intended solution and a high-level timeline. As a certified quality auditor, which of the following approaches best ensures the quality of the project's definition phase? Option A. Focus primarily on the technical feasibility of the proposed solution and the project's potential return on investment, as these are the most critical factors for project success. Option B. Expedite the approval of the project charter to allow the project team to begin implementation as quickly as possible, minimizing delays. Option C. Thoroughly review the draft project charter to confirm the problem statement is clear and specific. The project goals are measurable and aligned with organizational objectives. The scope is well defined with clear boundaries, and stakeholder agreement is evident. Option D. Assess the project's alignment with the immediate needs of the most vocal department, ensuring their primary concerns are addressed in the scope. The correct answer is C. Thoroughly review the draft project charter to confirm the problem statement is clear and specific. The project goals are measurable and aligned with organizational objectives. The scope is well defined with clear boundaries, and stakeholder agreement is evident. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a quality auditor to navigate the initial, foundational stages of a project, where ambiguity is common and the impact of early decisions on the entire project's success is significant. The auditor must assess the quality of the project's definition and planning, ensuring it aligns with established quality principles and regulatory expectations for project initiation. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between a robust, well-defined project and one that is susceptible to scope creep, unclear objectives, or inadequate stakeholder buy-in, all of which can lead to quality failures later in the project lifecycle. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the project charter and its supporting documentation to ensure it clearly articulates the project's purpose, scope, objectives, and key stakeholders. This aligns with the fundamental principles of quality management, which emphasize planning and definition as critical precursors to execution. Specifically, for a certified quality auditor exam, this would involve referencing guidelines that stress the importance of a well-defined problem statement, measurable goals, and a clearly delineated scope to prevent misunderstandings and ensure that the project delivers intended value. The project charter serves as the foundational document, and its quality directly impacts the project's ability to meet quality standards and regulatory compliance requirements. An approach that focuses solely on the technical feasibility of the proposed solution, without adequately defining the problem or scope, is incorrect. This fails to address the core quality principle of understanding the why behind the project, and can lead to solutions that do not meet the actual needs of the organization or its customers, resulting in wasted resources and potential noncompliance with quality objectives. An approach that prioritizes speed of project initiation over the clarity and completeness of the project charter is also incorrect. Rushing through the definition phase, particularly the problem statement and goal setting, increases the risk of misinterpretation, scope creep, and ultimately, project failure. Regulatory frameworks for quality management emphasize thorough planning and documentation as a means to ensure control and predictability, which are compromised by a hasty initiation. An approach that overlooks the importance of stakeholder consensus on the project scope and objectives is flawed. A lack of buy-in from key stakeholders, as documented in the project charter, can lead to resistance, conflicting requirements, and a failure to achieve project goals, thereby undermining the quality of the project's outcome and its adherence to established quality standards. The professional reasoning process for similar situations involves a systematic evaluation of the project's definition phase against established quality management principles and any applicable regulatory or organizational standards. This includes critically examining the problem statement for clarity and relevance, assessing the goals for measurability and alignment with business needs, verifying the scope for completeness and boundaries, and confirming the project charter as a comprehensive and agreed-upon document. Auditors should ask, is the problem clearly understood? Are the goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, SMART? Is the scope well-defined and agreed upon? Does the project charter accurately reflect these elements and have stakeholder endorsement? Question 14. Research into the effectiveness of a newly implemented control plan for a critical manufacturing process reveals that while the plan was documented and initial training was conducted, there is no established system for regularly collecting and analyzing performance data related to the control's effectiveness, nor are there defined procedures for addressing deviations from expected performance. Which approach best ensures the sustained improvement and control of this process? Option A. Prioritize immediate cost-saving measures by reducing the frequency of any planned monitoring activities until a significant issue arises. Option B. Conclude that the control plan is effectively implemented because it has been documented and initial training has been completed. Option C. Implement a robust system for ongoing data collection, performance monitoring, trend analysis, and corrective action for deviations, alongside a process for periodic review and update of the control plan to sustain improvements. Option D. Rely on occasional visual inspections by supervisors to ensure the process is operating within acceptable parameters. The correct answer is C. Implement a robust system for ongoing data collection, performance monitoring, trend analysis, and corrective action for deviations, alongside a process for periodic review and update of the control plan to sustain improvements. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in the control phase of quality management, ensuring that implemented controls remain effective and that improvements are sustained over time, rather than reverting to previous suboptimal practices. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for ongoing vigilance with the practicalities of resource allocation and the potential for complacency. Auditors must exercise careful judgment to distinguish between superficial adherence to procedures and genuine, embedded quality. The correct approach involves a proactive and data-driven strategy for monitoring control effectiveness and identifying deviations or opportunities for further enhancement. This aligns with the fundamental principles of quality management systems, which emphasize continuous improvement and the need for robust verification mechanisms. Specifically, regulatory frameworks for quality auditing, such as those underpinning the Certified Quality Auditor designation, mandate that auditors assess the ongoing effectiveness of implemented controls. This includes verifying that performance metrics are tracked, analyzed, and acted upon, and that mechanisms are in place to prevent regression. The ethical obligation is to provide an objective assessment that safeguards the integrity of the quality system and protects stakeholders. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the initial implementation of control plans without ongoing verification fails to meet the requirements of the control phase. This overlooks the dynamic nature of processes and the potential for drift or breakdown in controls. It represents a superficial understanding of quality assurance and a failure to uphold the auditor's responsibility to ensure sustained effectiveness. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or infrequent, unsystematic checks is also professionally unacceptable. This lacks the rigor required for effective quality control and can lead to undetected nonconformities. Regulatory expectations for quality auditing demand systematic data collection and analysis to support conclusions, not subjective impressions. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over the validation of control effectiveness demonstrates a misaligned set of priorities. While efficiency is important, it should not come at the expense of ensuring that quality standards are consistently met. This approach risks compromising the integrity of the quality system and potentially leading to product or service failures, which would have significant regulatory and ethical repercussions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the control phase activities. This includes 1. Understanding the defined control plans and performance metrics. 2. Assessing the methods used for monitoring performance against these metrics. 3. Verifying the analysis of performance data and the actions taken in response to deviations or trends. And 4. Evaluating the mechanisms in place to sustain improvements and prevent backsliding. This structured approach ensures that all critical aspects of the control phase are adequately addressed, leading to a reliable assessment of the quality system's effectiveness. Question 15. The evaluation methodology shows that a manufacturing company is experiencing a significant increase in external failure costs due to product returns and warranty claims. The quality auditor is tasked with recommending a strategy to address this trend. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of cost of quality and regulatory expectations for a certified quality auditor? Option A. Advocate for a significant reduction in product testing and inspection frequency to lower appraisal costs, thereby offsetting the rising external failure costs. Option B. Suggest a focus on minimizing all quality-related costs, including prevention and appraisal, to improve immediate profitability, assuming external failures are an unavoidable business expense. Option C. Propose a strategy to outsource all quality control functions to third-party inspectors to reduce internal appraisal expenses. Option D. Recommend a substantial increase in investment in robust design controls, supplier quality management, and comprehensive employee training programs, alongside enhanced product testing and inspection protocols. Correct answer is D. Recommend a substantial increase in investment in robust design controls, supplier quality management, and comprehensive employee training programs, alongside enhanced product testing and inspection protocols. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a certified quality auditor to balance the immediate financial implications of quality failures with the long-term strategic benefits of investing in quality. The auditor must move beyond simply identifying costs to understanding how these costs reflect the effectiveness of the organization's quality management system and its adherence to regulatory expectations for product safety and customer satisfaction. The challenge lies in framing the discussion of quality costs not as an expense, but as an investment in risk mitigation and operational excellence, which is a core tenet of quality auditing. The correct approach involves prioritizing investments in prevention and appraisal costs. This is justified by regulatory frameworks that emphasize proactive quality management and the prevention of defects. For example, in the U.S., regulations such as those from the FDA E.g. 21 CFR Part 820 for quality system regulation mandate that manufacturers establish and maintain procedures to prevent the occurrence of nonconformities. Investing in robust design controls, supplier quality agreements, and employee training prevention costs, and conducting thorough inspections and testing, appraisal costs, directly supports these regulatory mandates and reduces the likelihood of costly internal and external failures. Ethically, this approach aligns with the auditor's responsibility to promote a culture of quality and safety, safeguarding both the organization and its customers. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on minimizing appraisal costs would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a misunderstanding of the purpose of appraisal. Appraisal costs are incurred to detect defects before they reach the customer. Reducing these costs without a corresponding increase in prevention would likely lead to an increase in internal and external failure costs, as defects would go undetected. This directly contravenes regulatory expectations for product quality and safety, potentially leading to recalls, customer complaints, and legal liabilities. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the reduction of prevention and appraisal costs to boost short-term profitability is also professionally unacceptable. This approach ignores the fundamental principle of the cost of quality, which posits that investing in prevention and appraisal is more cost-effective in the long run than dealing with the consequences of failure. Such a strategy would be ethically questionable, as it prioritizes financial gain over product integrity and customer well-being, potentially violating the auditor's duty to uphold professional standards and contribute to organizational improvement. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a comprehensive risk assessment. Auditors should first understand the organization's quality objectives and regulatory obligations. Then, they should analyze the current cost of quality breakdown, identifying areas where failure costs are disproportionately high. The focus should then shift to evaluating the effectiveness of existing prevention and appraisal activities, and recommending strategic investments in these areas to mitigate risks associated with internal and external failures. This involves communicating the long-term value proposition of quality investments to management, framing it within the context of regulatory compliance and sustainable business success. Question 16. Comparative studies suggest that when conducting a failure mode and effects analysis, FME, for new product, a quality auditor's primary objective is to identify and mitigate potential failures. Considering the diverse perspectives that influence product quality and market reception, which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of a comprehensive and effective FME from a stakeholder perspective? Option A. Relying solely on historical failure data from similar products, without conducting proactive risk identification for the new product's unique design and intended use. Option B. Engaging a cross-functional team, including representatives from design, manufacturing, marketing, and customer service, to brainstorm potential failure modes and their impacts, and collaboratively develop mitigation strategies. Option C. Focusing exclusively on the technical specifications and engineering reports to identify failure modes, assuming that technical experts possess all necessary insights. Option D. Prioritizing the speed of product release by conducting a cursory FME that only addresses the most obvious and historically common failure modes. The correct answer is B. Engaging a cross-functional team, including representatives from design, manufacturing, marketing, and customer service, to brainstorm potential failure modes and their impacts, and collaboratively develop mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for product release with the long-term implications of potential quality failures. The certified quality auditor must exercise sound judgment to ensure that risk mitigation activities are adequate and aligned with regulatory expectations, without unduly delaying market entry. The pressure to launch can create a conflict between business objectives and the auditor's responsibility to uphold quality standards. The correct approach involves a thorough stakeholder engagement process to ensure all perspectives on potential failure modes and their effects are considered. This aligns with the principles of ISO 9001, which emphasizes a risk-based approach to quality management and the importance of understanding customer and other relevant interested parties' needs and expectations. By involving diverse stakeholders, including design, manufacturing, marketing, and customer service, the auditor facilitates a comprehensive FME that captures a wider range of potential failures and their impacts. This collaborative effort ensures that mitigation strategies are practical, effective, and address the concerns of those most affected by product performance. The regulatory framework for quality auditing, particularly within the context of ISO standards, mandates a systematic and proactive approach to identifying and controlling risks that could impact product conformity and customer satisfaction. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical aspects of failure modes without considering their business or customer impact fails to meet the holistic requirements of quality management. This overlooks the broader implications of a failure, such as reputational damage, customer dissatisfaction, and potential regulatory noncompliance, which are critical considerations for a quality auditor. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of release over thorough risk assessment is ethically unsound and violates the core principles of quality assurance. This approach neglects the auditor's fundamental responsibility to protect the public and ensure product safety and efficacy. It can lead to significant financial and reputational damage if failures occur, and may result in regulatory sanctions. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on historical data without proactive identification of new or emerging failure modes is insufficient. While historical data is valuable, it does not account for changes in design, manufacturing processes, or market conditions that could introduce novel failure risks. A robust FME requires forward-looking analysis to anticipate potential issues before they manifest. Professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the scope and objectives of the FME. 2. Identifying all relevant stakeholders and ensuring their active participation. 3. Systematically identifying potential failure modes and their effects from multiple perspectives. 4. Evaluating the severity, occurrence, and detection of each failure mode. 5. Developing and implementing effective mitigation and control plans. And 6. Establishing a process for ongoing monitoring and review. This structured approach ensures that quality risks are managed effectively and in compliance with relevant standards and regulations. Question 17. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a regression analysis has identified a statistically significant relationship, P0.05, between a specific raw material supplier's batch variability and the incidence of a minor cosmetic defect in the final product. The coefficient for the supplier's batch variability is small, suggesting a minimal impact on the defect rate. Which of the following approaches best reflects the quality auditor's responsibility in this situation? Option A. Recommend further investigation into the supplier's processes and consider a change in supplier if the observed relationship, however small, poses any potential for future escalation or impacts customer perception, while acknowledging the current low defect rate. Option B. Focus solely on the p-value to confirm the statistical significance and recommend a change in the regression model to eliminate the observed relationship, without further investigation into the underlying causes. Option C. Immediately flag the supplier for potential noncompliance and recommend a mandatory product recall due to the identified statistical correlation, irrespective of the defect's severity or the magnitude of the relationship. Option D. Conclude that the relationship is not practically significant and therefore does not warrant further action or reporting, as the defect is minor and the statistical significance is weak. The correct answer is A. Recommend further investigation into the supplier's processes and consider a change in supplier if the observed relationship, however small, poses any potential for future escalation or impacts customer perception, while acknowledging the current low defect rate. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a quality auditor to interpret the results of a regression analysis in the context of regulatory compliance and potential product defects, without being swayed by superficial statistical significance. The auditor must demonstrate a deep understanding of how regression models are used to identify relationships between variables and how these relationships can inform risk assessment, particularly concerning product quality and safety. The challenge lies in distinguishing between a statistically significant finding and a practically significant one that warrants regulatory action or further investigation. The correct approach involves a thorough examination of the regression model's assumptions, the practical significance of the identified relationships, and the potential impact on product quality and customer safety. This aligns with the core principles of quality auditing, which mandate a systematic and independent examination to determine whether quality activities and related results conform to planned arrangements, and whether these arrangements are implemented effectively and are suitable to achieve objectives. Specifically, for a certified quality auditor, this means ensuring that the interpretation of regression analysis directly supports the identification and mitigation of risks that could lead to non-conforming products or services, thereby upholding regulatory requirements for product safety and efficacy. The focus is on actionable insights derived from the data, not just statistical outputs. An incorrect approach that relies solely on p-values to declare a relationship as significant, without considering the magnitude of the effect or the practical implications, fails to meet the auditor's responsibility. Regulatory frameworks for quality auditing emphasize that findings must be based on objective evidence and lead to appropriate corrective actions. Ignoring the practical significance of a regression finding, even if statistically significant, means the auditor is not effectively assessing risk or ensuring that quality objectives are met. This can lead to a false sense of security or, conversely, unnecessary alarm, both of which undermine the integrity of the quality system and potentially expose the organization to regulatory noncompliance. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss a statistically significant finding simply because it was not initially hypothesized. Quality auditing is an investigative process. Regression analysis is a tool to uncover potential relationships, some of which may be unexpected. Failing to explore these unexpected but statistically supported relationships means the auditor is not fully leveraging the analytical tools available to identify potential risks or areas for improvement. This can result in missed opportunities to prevent quality issues. A third incorrect approach is to over-rely on the model's predictive power without validating its assumptions or considering the context of the data. Regression models are simplifications of reality. If the underlying assumptions are violated, or if the model is applied outside the range of the data used to build it, its interpretations can be misleading. A quality auditor must ensure that the model is appropriate for the intended purpose and that its limitations are understood. Otherwise, the risk assessment based on its outputs will be flawed. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured approach. 1. Understand the objective of the regression analysis within the quality system. 2. Critically evaluate the regression model, check assumptions, assess goodness of fit, and understand the meaning of coefficients. 3. Interpret the results in the context of practical significance and potential impact on product quality and safety. 4. Corroborate statistical findings with other objective evidence. 5. Document findings clearly, explaining the rationale and implications for risk assessment and corrective actions. 6. Communicate findings effectively to relevant stakeholders, highlighting both statistical and practical implications. Question 18. Regulatory review indicates that a quality auditor has performed a t-test on measurements from a critical manufacturing process and found a statistically significant difference, p0.05, between the current process output and the historical average, which is considered the benchmark for quality. The auditor's initial report solely states process deviation confirmed due to statistically significant t-test result. What is the most appropriate next step for the auditor, considering the impact assessment required for quality audits? Option A. Conclude that the process is non-compliant with regulatory standards and immediately recommend a full process shutdown and revalidation. Option B. Evaluate the magnitude of the statistically significant difference against the established regulatory tolerance limits and internal quality specifications to determine its practical and compliance significance. Option C. Recommend a larger sample size for future testing to confirm the statistical significance without assessing the current observed differences' impact. Option D. Dismiss the finding as a potential statistical anomaly due to the inherent variability of the process, without further investigation into the magnitude of the difference. Correct answer is B. Evaluate the magnitude of the statistically significant difference against the established regulatory tolerance limits and internal quality specifications to determine its practical and compliance significance. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a quality auditor to interpret statistical findings within the context of regulatory compliance and potential impact on product quality and patient safety. The auditor must move beyond simply identifying a statistical difference to understanding its practical significance and regulatory implications. Careful judgment is required to avoid overreacting to statistically significant but practically irrelevant findings, or, conversely, overlooking statistically insignificant but potentially critical issues. The correct approach involves recognizing that a statistically significant difference, as indicated by a t-test, suggests a real difference between the sample means. However, the auditor must then consider the practical implications of this difference in relation to established quality standards and regulatory requirements. This means evaluating whether the observed difference, even if statistically significant, falls within acceptable tolerance limits defined by regulations or internal quality specifications. If the difference exceeds these limits, it necessitates further investigation and corrective action to ensure compliance and product quality. This aligns with the fundamental principles of quality auditing, which aim to verify conformity to requirements and identify areas for improvement to prevent non-conforming products or services. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the p-value from the t-test without considering the practical implications or regulatory context. For instance, concluding that a process is non-compliant solely because a t-test yields a statistically significant result, without assessing the magnitude of the difference against established specifications, is a failure. This ignores the principle that statistical significance does not automatically equate to practical or regulatory significance. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss a statistically significant finding because the sample size was small. While sample size impacts the power of a test, a statistically significant result from a small sample, if it indicates a deviation from requirements, still warrants attention and investigation, especially if it points to a potential risk. Finally, incorrectly applying a chi-square test when the data is continuous and a t-test is appropriate would lead to invalid conclusions and a failure to accurately assess the quality issue. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the appropriate statistical tools for different data types and research questions, undermining the integrity of the audit. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that integrates statistical findings with regulatory requirements and practical considerations. This involves 1. Clearly defining the null and alternative hypotheses based on the quality objective. 2. Selecting the appropriate statistical test based on the data type and research question. 3. Interpreting the statistical results e.g., p-value confidence intervals in conjunction with the significance level. 4. Critically evaluating the practical and regulatory significance of any observed differences or associations. 5. Determining if the findings indicate a deviation from requirements that necessitates further action, and if so, recommending appropriate corrective and preventive actions. Question 19. Consider a scenario where a certified quality auditor is reviewing a manufacturing process for a medical device. The auditor identifies several steps that appear to be time-consuming and contribute significantly to the overall production cost. Management is eager to reduce these costs to improve profitability. The auditor is tasked with recommending process optimizations. Which of the following represents the most appropriate approach for the auditor? Option A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the identified inefficiencies, map the process flow, identify non-value-added activities, and propose targeted, validated improvements that maintain or enhance product quality and regulatory adherence. Option B. Suggest implementing a new, unproven technology that promises significant cost savings without conducting pilot studies or assessing its impact on existing quality controls and regulatory requirements. Option C. Recommend the immediate elimination of any steps deemed time-consuming and costly, regardless of their perceived contribution to product quality or regulatory compliance. Option D. Focus solely on reducing labor costs associated with the time-consuming steps by recommending staff reductions or increased workload, without evaluating the impact on process control and potential for errors. The correct answer is C. Recommend the immediate elimination of any steps deemed time-consuming and costly, regardless of their perceived contribution to product quality or regulatory compliance. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the auditor to balance the immediate pressure for cost reduction with the long-term imperative of maintaining product quality and regulatory compliance. The auditor must exercise sound professional judgment to identify the root causes of inefficiencies without compromising the integrity of the quality management system. The pressure to cut costs can lead to shortcuts that violate established procedures or regulatory requirements, necessitating a thorough and objective assessment. The correct approach involves a systematic analysis of the process to identify non-value-added steps and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements that enhance efficiency without negatively impacting quality or compliance. This aligns with the principles of process optimization, a core component of quality management systems. Specifically, it adheres to the fundamental tenets of quality auditing, which mandate an objective evaluation of processes against established criteria, including regulatory requirements. The ethical obligation of a quality auditor is to ensure that improvements do not lead to non-compliance or compromise product safety and efficacy, thereby protecting stakeholders and the public. This approach is justified by the overarching goal of quality management: to consistently meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on eliminating steps without understanding their purpose or impact risks removing critical control points, potentially leading to increased defects, customer dissatisfaction, and regulatory noncompliance. This would violate the auditor's duty to ensure the effectiveness of the quality management system. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough root cause analysis and validation of improvements may result in superficial changes that do not address the underlying issues, leading to recurring problems and wasted resources. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and professional skepticism. A third incorrect approach that involves making recommendations without consulting relevant stakeholders or considering the broader implications for the organization's quality objectives fails to foster buy-in and may overlook crucial operational realities, undermining the sustainability of any proposed changes. This neglects the collaborative nature of effective quality improvement. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the current process and its objectives. They should then employ systematic problem-solving methodologies to identify root causes of inefficiency. Recommendations should be data-driven, validated, and consider all potential impacts on quality, safety, and regulatory compliance. Collaboration with relevant departments and stakeholders is crucial to ensure practical and sustainable solutions. The auditor's role is to facilitate informed decision-making that upholds quality standards and regulatory adherence. Question 20. Operational review demonstrates a recurring issue with product batch failures in the pharmaceutical manufacturing process. The quality auditor needs to determine the most effective method for root cause analysis to ensure compliance with good manufacturing practices, GMP, and prevent future occurrences. Which of the following analytical approaches is most appropriate for this situation? Option A. Conducting structured interviews with production staff to gather their opinions on potential causes. Option B. Reviewing historical quality records for similar past issues without specific data analysis. Option C. Performing a single-point failure analysis based on the most recent batch failure incident. Option D. Applying statistical process control (SPC) techniques to analyze batch failure data and identify trends. The correct answer is A. Conducting structured interviews with production staff to gather their opinions on potential causes. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in quality auditing, identifying the true underlying cause of a recurring nonconformance rather than addressing superficial symptoms. The professional challenge lies in moving beyond immediate fixes to implement sustainable corrective actions, which requires a systematic and evidence-based approach. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate analytical tool and to interpret its results within the context of the organization's quality management system and relevant regulatory requirements. The correct approach involves utilizing statistical analysis to identify patterns and potential root causes. Specifically, employing tools like Pareto charts or control charts can help visualize the frequency or variability of the nonconformance, guiding the auditor towards the most significant contributing factors. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement mandated by quality management standards, which emphasize data-driven decision-making. Regulatory frameworks often require organizations to have robust processes for identifying, investigating, and correcting nonconformances, and statistical analysis provides the objective evidence needed to support these actions. The ethical obligation of an auditor is to ensure that corrective actions are effective and address the fundamental issues, preventing recurrence. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on anecdotal evidence or expert opinion without empirical validation. Experienced personnel can offer valuable insights, decisions based purely on intuition or past practices, without statistical backing, risk misidentifying the root cause. This can lead to wasted resources on ineffective corrective actions and a failure to comply with regulatory expectations for thorough investigation. Another incorrect approach is to implement a corrective action based on a single, isolated incident without considering the broader trend or context. This reactive approach fails to address systemic issues and is unlikely to prevent future occurrences, thus violating the spirit of quality management and potentially contravening regulatory requirements for proactive problem solving. Professionals should approach such situations by first clearly defining the problem and gathering relevant data. They should then consider various analytical tools, selecting those best suited to the nature of the data and the problem. The results of the analysis should be critically evaluated for their statistical significance and practical implications. Finally, the chosen corrective actions should be based on the evidence derived from the analysis, with a plan for verification of their effectiveness.